Good morning. I brought my chimes so I could ring in the morning. Ah, welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living, Tahoe-Truckee Sunday morning gathering. My name's Brenda Heldoorn. I'm a licensed prayer practitioner here, and it is my joy to welcome you here this morning. Whoever you are and wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. We know that there are many paths to God, and we recognize that all those paths end in oneness and in love. So we're grateful for each one of you this morning. And whether you're here in the sanctuary or watching live on Zoom. Our center's purpose is love. Our vision is embracing all and serving with love while awakening to the one. So if you will join me this morning in reading our receptivity statement. I am here by divine appointment. Something I am about to hear applies to my life. I am open, receptive, and willing to explore the possibilities. This morning our musician is Colleen Akiko, our very own Colleen Akiko. So please join me in welcoming Colleen this morning for an opening song.
I feel so loved. Feeling the love. Oh. It's good to be home. Home with you and being reminded of the home within each of us. Okay, let me see if I can do this. Okay. Okay. Well, the piano told me to switch to the guitar, so we're going to give this a try. This is a song called One Awakening, and it is, I think it's the newest completed song, and I'm actually, I have stepped out of the comfort zone, and I'm getting ready to release a mini CD, and it's called One Awakening, the same title as this song. And so I think we have heard the word awakening already this morning, and our dear Reverend Eileen has been awakened since 4 a.m. So I invite you to just feel that gentle kind of waking up where you're just like, ah. You know, Lila, when she stretches, she doesn't just go, ah, she goes, ah, and she just kind of, I think I'll stretch and lay down right here. You'll probably see her do that. I love the way she stretches. So may we kind of just gently recognize the awakening that we are experiencing and that we're all a part of. I thank you for being a part of my awakening and letting me be a part of yours. We're all awakening together. One awakening in the silence unfolding. One awakening as awareness is growing. Opened by a broken heart, my eyes can finally see. One awakening, I'm one awakening and free. One awakening from a dream I'm forgetting. one awakening in a sunrise of blessing, streaming through a ray of truth to healing in my soul. One awakening, I'm one awakening and whole. One awakening into light beyond measure. One awakening with creation together. Now beholding nothing, being infinitely all. One awakening, I'm one awakening as love. Now beholding nothing, being infinitely all. One awakening, I'm one awakening as love.
Thank you, Colleen. That was beautiful. Yeah. And we know that will be coming forward in recorded form. We know that with you. So today we begin October with our Centers for Spiritual Living theme, which is playing with paradox. And today Rev Eileen Brownell will be speaking on the topic, the fire within. We're so grateful to have Reverend Eileen back with us again. She traveled quite a distance today to be with us, and I'm so grateful. Thank you. So today's special reading comes from the Living the Science of Mind. And the Bible tells us that perfect love casts out fear, and that where love is, fear cannot remain. We can apply this principle of faith and confidence to ourselves as individuals, to our families as the first unit we deal with, and to all people we contact in everyday walks of life. Did you ever notice the effect of just being with a person who is calm and poised and unafraid? How different you feel, how buoyed up, how confident you become. Why should not each one of us become a broadcasting station for faith? The world is too largely governed by fear. We are afraid of this and that and something else, and we're afraid of what happened and what is happening and what we think is going to happen. If fear is contagious and does in some mysterious way create a germ which acts negatively in the physical body, I think it is not too much to say that it also secretes some kind of a mental germ in which the whole race mind, which affects everyone with a sense of confusion and uncertainty and anxiety. There is no doubt that this is true. We should do something about it. Not that we have to become heroic figures who consider themselves the liberators of humanity, for we are probably not in a position to do this. What I mean is that each one of us should analyze his own thinking to determine what is wrong and replace every fear with faith and confidence. Ernest speaks to us so concisely, gently, and powerfully, and so we'll take this idea into prayer. And from this place of the unified whole, the consciousness of the divine, the mind that was in Christ Jesus is in each of our minds in this moment. And this mind is wholly one with the one. Therefore, love is the truth. Love is the reality. Where the recognition of love is, fear dissolves like the mist before the sun. And of this, I am very sure, completely confident, and wholly in accord with. In my mind, I am a broadcasting station of love, of peace, of joy, which is the evidence of the presence of God. And so I move forward throughout the day, simply being the presence of the one that shines light and chases all shadows of fear. I need do nothing, just simply be. This is true for me, this is true for each one of us, for each and every one of us is an expression of the divine. So I release my words into the law, knowing that they are already acted upon. They are already returned fulfilled. And I simply give thanks with a full and grateful heart. And so it is.
So it is.
Okay. And so I'd like to invite Reverend Eileen to share her message with us this morning.
How many of you have had small fears, like you were afraid you were going to miss an airplane, or you were going to run out of gas, or like me this morning, I was afraid I wasn't going to get here on time because the road was closed, and I panicked and scared to death? Or how many of you are still experiencing a fear from childhood? Now, I've got one. I'm scared to death of snakes, and that comes from when I was a child of 3 years of age. In 7,000 Ways to Listen, Mark Nepo tells the story of a woman by the name of Lisa, who was severely burned in a gas fire when she was about 9 years old. And the trauma was so great that it dominated her life, her whole entire life. And 35 years later, she was still scared to death whenever she got around gasoline fires or propane fires. In fact, she was sitting outside at somebody's house and they had barbecued and the propane was still on the barbecue, she would ask them to get up and turn it off because there was so much fear there. Well, one day she decided that she really didn't want to live that way anymore. She had made that commitment to herself that this had to end. She wanted to have a normal life. And so after pondering it and thinking about it, she decided that the only way that she could possibly do that was to step into the fire again. And so she went to the fire department and she talked to the fire department, and they agreed that they would do a controlled burn for her and allow her in a fireproof suit to walk into the controlled burn and walk out. And so that's exactly what happened. as they started a fire for her. She had the suit on. She walked into the fire, and of course her heart just started to go crazy when it was beating away, because here she was in the center of a fire that was exactly what it was 30 some odd years ago when she was 9 years old. And so she got further into the center of the fire, and she looked down, and she looked at her hands, and she watched the flames come up through her hands. And she watched the flames come towards her face, and yet her face was fine. It wasn't being attacked. And so slowly, what she began to realize is that she was safe, and her fear of fire began to melt away. And as she slowly walked through, completing the walk through the fire, she felt the fire part as she would walk through it, and then envelop her behind until she was through. And based upon that experience, she was able to let go. She was able to let go of her fear of fire. Now, the fire can be a wound or a fear that keeps burning within each and every one of us. It's not easy to listen to spirit when we've got a fear that's eating away at us, that's like that fire that's within us. Because we look at it with distortion, whatever it is that we're trying to overcome. And fear is a disturbing emotion. It arouses within us that there's something dangerous down the road, or dangerous that's going to happen to us. That's what comes up. It's caused by an external threat, not what's within us, but by an external threat. Something in our environment is happening, and our body reacts with fear. When we experience threatening or fearful psychological situations, our body has certain things to it. We might tighten our shoulders. We might grasp into fists. We might put our hands in our pocket so that we can't see them as they're shaking. Psychologist and Professor Joseph Balata says a part of our brain called the hypothalamus, which controls our basic drives like hunger and thirst, sends a signal that activates our sympathetic nerve system. Our sympathetic nervous system releases hormones that allow the body to deal with the emergency situation. Now, when fear strikes, an individual response is often called fight, flight, or freeze. And the body prepares the muscles to fight off the danger or run from it. Those are the two typical ones rather than freezing. The heart rate increases, the lungs dilate or widen to allow more airflow, goosebumps may come upon our arms or our body, and all of these are a defense mechanism, and our digestive system shuts down. A hormone called adrenaline is then released which causes the body to trigger all of those responses. As a police chaplain, I've heard from many police and fire and EMT in a debriefing process that they know what it really feels like to have that fear when they're called into situations like an active shooter. And of course, they experience it physically as well as mentally, and that fight, flight, or freeze shows up for them. They need judgment. They need the judgment, however, that lets them know that they need that fight, flight, or freeze in order to survive what's going to transpire. Recently, as news began to show up about the Maui fire, for me, my own fear and trauma started to show up again, and I realized that it was because of what had happened to me when I worked 30 some odd days on the campfire almost 5 years ago. And I began to see the pictures of Maui, of Lahaina, and it was like it was happening for me all over again. And I had to stop. I said, nope, I don't have to work at this time. I don't have to be there. I'm okay. I don't have to run or freeze or fight this. And anxiety comes up that reminds us of those old situations. And it's no wonder that our soldiers or our military folk returning from Afghanistan, Iraq, some of them suffer from PTSD because of that. Fear is a very normal response to a situation that we feel threatened by. In the Atlas of the Heart, Brene Brown tells us fear arises when we need to respond quickly to physical, psychological danger that is present and imminent. She further talks about the fear as a temporary condition that is experienced for just a short period of time. Ernest Holmes puts it more simply. Fear is faith negatively applied. 2 Timothy 1 verse 7 says, "For God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of good discipline." Thich Nhat Hanh tells us that the only way to ease our fear and be truly happy is to acknowledge our fears and look deeply at its source within. Fear can be based on a past experience or a present situation, or even something we may stew about for the future. It can be a fear generated from a learned experience in our childhood. As I stated, my mother was afraid of snakes, and because of a shared experience that we had, which occurred when I was 3, I have a fear of them. We were in Los Angeles visiting cousins, and my teenage cousins and I was only 3. They took us off to the mountains for a picnic in Los Angeles mountains. And as we were hiking, my brother and I, with our 3 older teenage cousins, we came across a rattlesnake. And so they got a forked stick and they cut its head off, and they were going to take back the rattlesnake so that they could have the skin on it. Well, they didn't realize that my mother was scared to death of snakes. And so they said, "Oh, Eileen, here, you show the snake to your mama." And of course, with the reaction, I put the snake wrapped around my arm. And I hid it behind my back, and I went, "Mommy, Mommy, Mommy, look." And I thought she was going to have a heart attack. She screamed so loud because of this snake wrapped around my arm. And of course, from that point on, I was scared to death of snakes. It still gives me the willies. So, we talked about Lisa, and she provides us with the perfect example also of somebody who experienced something 30, 40 years ago that fear came up. And finding yourself facing a bear in the woods can be a present danger, for example, that you're dealing with. Or someone who is afraid of public speaking can spend days fearing the presentation that they have to do at work. The only way to ease our fear and be truly happy is to acknowledge our fear and look deeply at the source, according to Thich Nhat Hanh. And the only way to do that is to stay present in the moment and begin the journey of letting ourselves or someone else off the hook with our fear. That is not always easy, to bring ourselves back to the center. One of the techniques we teach people who have experienced trauma or even in a crisis is what I call the toe crinkle. And it's very simple because they can do it anywhere. The police, anybody can do it. And we just tell them to take your right foot and crinkle your toes. Now move it to the left foot, crinkle your toes, and go back and forth for about a minute. And it's something they can do anywhere. And what that does for them is it takes them from the back of the head, where the fear is, the hypothalamus is, where the fear is, that gets that adrenaline going within us, and brings us to the front of the brain, which takes us out of that place of fear and puts us in the present moment. We've taught this to children too, except we've demonstrated it in a different way. We call it the butterfly. And here's the butterfly, and we just simply tell them left, right, and it makes both sides of the brain work. And it's such a simple process, and yet it brings us back to that present moment. And being centered in the present moment increases our courage to be able to face our fears. and brings calmness so that we might listen to our inner voice in the present moment. Pema Chodron, in her book The Places That Scare You, wrote, "We can let the circumstances of our lives harden us so that we become increasingly resentful and afraid, or we can let them soften us and make us kinder and more open to what scares us. We always have that choice." Lisa could have stayed angry and resentful of the people responsible for her burning injury the rest of her life. She could have constantly lived in fear whenever a match was even lit. She didn't, however, when she walked into that fire, as an adult with a purposeful intent in mind. Lisa let herself stay in the moment, not in the past. And then she shifted a belief she had hung on to way too long. The Atlas of the Heart reminds us that when we live in fear and hurt, we move into states of uncertainty and anxiety and stress. We feel overwhelmed and vulnerable. Certainly not how we want to experience life, nor is it a place we want to build a condo and live in for the rest of our life. But too often fear grips us and we find ourselves absolutely paralyzed, on the hook, and unable to move beyond our experience or the crisis that we're facing. So how do we come back to center? How do we return to that place of Christ consciousness? How do we release the hooks that bind us, that have been embedded within us for years? Almost every source I looked at on the internet or within books gave me from 3 to 20 ways to release my fears. I'm not going to bother you with all 20 today. However, I will give you just a few. Tom Rutledge outlines 4 processes that he recommends in embracing fear. And the first one is to face fear and to acknowledge it. That means we stop hiding, we stop cringing, or stuffing our fears. It means that being still so you can hear the inner voice, the divine, and not just that scary negative voice that sits here on our shoulders and chatters away. Next, we need to explore the fear, the fire that burns within. Too often we stuff or attempt to walk away from what is scaring us. In this step, we stop and truly examine our fears. Where did it come from? Why does it bother us so much? When does this fear most often rise up within us? Is it a certain place or a certain time? Sometimes we can identify the triggers that cause the fear and then can begin to begin the process of healing. Accepting our fear does not mean we have to agree with a fear. By accepting it, we can also bless it. And a simple affirmation is simply, I accept this fear, I bless this fear, and actually name what it is. I have to say, though, that I certainly have a hard time saying I accept the snake and I bless it. So accepting and blessing is a simple process that can be done anywhere and anytime. As one of my mentors once said, until you can accept the worst, the best can never be and can never happen. If we are continually focused on keeping something challenging from happening that generates a fear within us or a negative emotion, we're using our energy to prevent something better from coming into our life. After all, whatever we resist will certainly persist and grow stronger in our life. Whatever you choose to allow into your life, you can change. So the next time a fear rises up within you, simply try, the love prayer, which is I accept you or accept this. And on the exhale, I bless this. Can we change a fear? Maybe, maybe not. But through recognition, we can begin to respond to our fear in a more healthy and realistic way. Remember that most of our emotional distress we experience about our fears are the direct result of how we think about ourselves and what is happening. And instead of focusing only on the experience or the circumstances that are in the process in an attempt to bring clarity to a situation. By doing so, we can begin to let ourselves off the hook and forgive ourselves or someone who may have helped to generate that fear. Remember, our focus is to understand the fear, not to give our power away by letting it control us. And after you have worked through these other steps, hopefully it will be time to let go of the fear. And just what does that encompass? Releasing your attachment to the past experience and the past events. Releasing the creation of future imagining that allows the fear to rise up within us. And then living in the moment. It does not mean that you have to force yourself to get over something horrible. It does mean that you suppress the experience, however, by making yourself forget. It doesn't mean, that you suppress the experience by making yourself forget. Instead, simply letting go is surrendering painful beliefs and emotions. By letting go, you're making space for love to come into your life. Understanding as well, and forgiveness and self-compassion to once again be part of your life. After all, it is our attachment and identification with our thoughts, that is the sole cause of our suffering and our struggles. In Brazil, they have a Portuguese saying, "I die," which means, and then? And when someone tells a story or shares a hardship, it is the custom of the listener to say or ask, "A dai?" Literally, "I" means and "dai" means from there, from a place near you. Put together, "I dai" simply means the first is it has multiple meanings rather. The first is I hear what life has given you. So what does this matter? What does this mean to you? The second is I see where you are, and so what is now in front of you? Or what is just beyond where you are right now? The third and final meaning to adai is, and so what now? What is your next step? What are you going to do? I love the beauty and the simplicity of this process. Someone being willing to ask a simple question that encourages the speaker to look within themselves and then truly listen to their answers. It helps the speaker to avoid overreacting to a situation, and it helps the individual to look at and potentially reframe their experience. And then the person can decide how best to take the next step in life. Actively listening with these questions and thoughts in mind is an act of love that may help another person change the direction of where they're going and what's happening to them. We can easily ask the same question of ourselves when we are faced with fear, a belief, or an uncomfortable situation. So the next time you are facing a fear, remember the simple word, adai. Don and his wife were driving home from the grocery store. A gallon of milk and a loaf of bread were in the back of the car, and they were in their early 30s, and they were chatting about a dinner party they had been invited to that evening and were looking forward to. It was late afternoon in the countryside, and it was a beautiful fall day. They were admiring the foliage and the brilliance of the oranges and the reds and the leaves in yellow, and the light enhancing the fall leaves when a truck driver, trying to find a country western station on his radio, swerved unexpectedly. There was no place for Don to go, and the driver tried to stop, but hit their compact car square in the center of the passenger seat. Don was badly burned and survived, but his wife did not. After his recovery, Don remarried and ultimately became a grandfather of 4. And a few years ago, he was driving once again alone in a nearby farm stand where he wanted to get some fresh, special tomatoes. And the light of the late summer afternoon brought the memory of that fall day back. It was as if his wife was there, the light, the sudden impact, and then the explosion transpired in his mind all over again. He pulled over and wept. For some reason that he could never quite explain, after that happened, he knew he had to meet the truck driver some 40 plus years later. It took a little research and a little time, but ultimately he was able to locate the truck driver, and they agreed to meet and share coffee together. As they sat there looking at each other in the busy coffee shop, the old driver fiddled with his napkin, trying to tear it with one hand. And it was clear to Don that the driver had never quite recovered either from the accident. Finally, Don reached out and he grabbed his hand that was tearing the napkin apart and muttered, "I forgive you." And the truck driver, about Don's age, broke down and cried. He had never again driven an 18-wheeler after that fall day. And when they left the coffee shop, they climbed into Don's car and went for a ride. In total silence, they watched the sun fill the farm valley. As they rode along, their hearts slowly opened up to each other, and 40 years of history poured forth from each one of them to each other. What is truly important about this story is why Don wanted to meet with the truck driver. As he puts it simply, I just had to let him off the hook before we both died. So the choice is ours. We can stay in the present moment, accept and bless what comes our way, surrender and forgive, and remove the hooks that bind us, or we can stay in the fear of the fire forever. Mark Nempo wrote a poem called But How, and he put it this way. Where'd my last page go? Oh my gosh. I'm missing a page. This is not fair. I wanted to read you the poem. No, it's not there. No, I'm missing page 21. Yeah, thanks, Penny. I know it's not in here. Well, that's not too embarrassing. Thank you. Oh, there we go. It's a great little poem, and it's about fear, and I wanted to close with that. It's not in the office. Well, I must have left it on my desk at home when I was practicing it. I apologize. I'll try. I'll send it, Penny. If I get your address, your email, I'll send you. Type it up and send it to you so that you can read it maybe next week to everybody. Um, that's terrible. Terrible that I did. Let me double check one more thing. Guess what I have? It was stuck in another piece of paper there. Here's the poem, and the poem is called But How. It is said that soul intent on living will reach deep into their wound and bring out the fire living there, which out in the open turns to light. It is said that those intent on making things better will reach deep into their minds and bring out the fire there, which out in the open turns to truth. And it is said that those who love, like rain, soothe every fire. This is the truth in my life, and this is the truth in yours. And so it is. Amen.
Thank you so much, Reverend Eileen. That was wonderful. And now that it's not flip-flop season anymore, you won't see me crinkling my toes. First the right and then the left. I love that. That's great. I've heard many examples of that way of aligning the brain again by cross, but I've never heard the toe crinkling thing.
The reason why we teach that to the officers is because they can do it in their shoes while they're driving or standing talking to
Yeah.
somebody.
And no one
And
knows you're
nobody
doing.
and nobody knows that you're doing it. That's why we teach it to the police and the fire and the EMTs.
That's amazing. Well, now I would like to invite Colleen back again for another song.
I thought I was the only one who did the toe crinkle thing.
Oh, you
But-
know it too, man.
You know, I've learned some out of my own need. I found myself getting some training, and actually got some level of certification in a left-right modality, dealing with trauma and other things. And I found myself traumatized from fear around singing. And for many years, I cantored for the Catholic Church. And I kind of freaked out when they said, okay, no more hiding behind the piano. You have to get up, stand up at the altar without any instruments and sing what everyone's going to sing back to you and just do this back and forth thing. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm just going to get up there and but yeah, I found that the crinkling toes, people don't, even in sandals, they don't see the toes crinkle, on my left, right, and, look at the psalm and have no idea what's going to come out of my mouth. And with the left, right, something would come out, and I'm still alive. So it's a very practical tool. So I have 3 songs that I was going to share with you, and I love that poem. And this song is called Center Spark, and it just dovetails with the expression of truth in that poem. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm glad you found it. I see the center spark deep inside your heart, shining like a star through the darkest night. Find your center spark, feel the love you are. See the truth, free your heart, be the center spark. How long have you been lost and tossed in fear? Come home, peace is right here, joy shines right here. I am right here in your center spark, deep inside your heart, shining like a star through the darkest night. In your center spark, feel the love you are. See the truth, free your heart, be the center spark. See the truth, free your heart, be the center spark. Be the center spark.
Thank you, Colleen. That was beautiful. And like you said, it's so perfectly appropriate. So now it's time for us to practice the sacrament of gratitude, of sharing, of our abundance. So if you will, join with me in our prosperity affirmation. In everything I give thanks. I gratefully and joyfully share my offering, which flows from God, my infinite source. My gift blesses this center and all who are guided, healed, and empowered by its activities. And so we know that there are many ways to give. For those of us here in the sanctuary, we gratefully welcome your checks, and that. But also for those of us who are joining us on Zoom, we have numerous ways to give that are on the screen. And know that your gift is gratefully and joyfully received, and that it touches our community in ways you can hardly imagine. Thank you. And so I gratefully receive these gifts, these blessings, this tangible evidence of community, of the joyful outpouring of our abundance. And so on behalf of the Center for Spiritual Living, Tahoe-Truckee, I receive these gifts. I bless them, and I know that they bless everyone who comes in contact with it as it goes out into the community in so many ways. And so it is.
Would you mind if I shared my third song instead of the because I don't have that song in my.
As you are led.
I would spare you me trying to figure out what key we do that in. And actually, thank you for being patient with me on the guitar. Some of these songs I've never played on the guitar before. And as you can tell, I'm not masterful at tuning either. Okay. This is called In the Presence of Love. And it really, again, just further ripples out just the wonderful truths that Reverend Eileen shared. Thank you so much. And it is in the presence of love that we find clarity, we find healing, we find our completeness. And from this presence, we give. It's just natural for us to offer that. In the presence of love, all things are clear. In the presence of love, every fear disappears. The all in all alive in me calls me now to see. In the presence of love, all is clear. In the presence of love, all things are healed. In the presence of love, radiant life is revealed. The all in all enfolding me calls me to believe. In the presence of love, all is healed. Everywhere, love is there, beckoning with joy to share. Near and far, I feel my heart opening from my soul to sing. In the presence of love, all is complete. In the presence of love, grace has filled every need. The all in all alive in me calls me to believe. In the presence of love, I am free. Everywhere, love is there, beckoning with joy to share. Near and far, I feel my heart opening for my soul to sing. Yahweh, I love you. Yahweh, thank you. Oh, thank you. The all alive is me sings out what is real. In the presence of love, all is clear. In the presence of love, all is healed. In the presence of love, I am free. I am free.
Gosh, that was beautiful. Okay, I think we have some announcements this morning. Again, just about everything that's going on at our center you can find on our website. So if you're not taking notes this morning, you can always go to our website and find out what's happening at tahoecsl.org. So all of these talks are recorded, so you can certainly revisit them or invite your family and friends who are interested in what goes on here to enjoy that. So the e-bike group is riding on. I think the window is getting narrow though, right, Sue?
Yeah, we're actually, Nancy's out of town. She's the only one who knows how to do that ride. So we're actually going to meet at Kilmer Park.
Okay,
and
so
ride down the West Shore.
okay, so contact Sue for sure for the updated information. And let's see, Friday night, Saturday morning, we had our very first snow up on Mount Rose. So here we go. Yeah. So free yoga class with Charlotte Peters, Tuesdays from 5 to 6 p.m. at the Lake Tahoe Wellness Center. And you can contact Charlotte directly about that. And we have a class happening that begins October 10th from 6 to 9. Reverend Pam is teaching that class, Infinite You as the Universe. And there's a sign-up sheet in the hospitality area. The Red Tent is meeting again on Thursday, October 12th, 6:30 to 8:30, and you'll want to contact Jackie, who's here with us today, for more information about the Red Tent. It's a women's gathering for ceremony and a potluck. And Adopt a Highway, Saturday, October 28th from 9 to 12. I think this is the last one, I believe, for the year. For cleaning up our section of the highway and making our beautiful Lake Tahoe beautiful. And you can contact Nancy about that. The ongoing events, of course, Tai Chi at 3:30 p.m. on Thursday with Chris, and the meditation, energization at 4:30 and meditation at 5 in the Ananda style. And then Friday, A Course of Love at 6:30 p.m. That's a Zoom class. It's a drop-in, and it is an amazing experience. And if you haven't ever thought about it, consider joining us, because it's deep, it's insightful, and it's a wonderful group. Okay, so now it's time to bless our children. And we are blessed with a child with us today. So, we see you, we hear you, we love you, you are a gift from God. And with that, please join us for hospitality, and thank you so much. And do we have a final song or just our affirmation? I think we just have our affirmation.
Reverend Eileen has something for us.
Oh,
She's got a Karen Drucker song.
Karen Drucker song. Oh.
Melissa Phillippe.
Oh, Melissa Phillippe. Okay, so I think we have to stand up for this one.
And then I've got a benediction.
Okay.
Not gonna cave into this pain in my heart. Not gonna listen to lies of self-hatred. Not gonna cry over yesterday's loss. Slip into darkness and wallow in pain. I've been there and done that, and I will not again.
It's entitled My Mental House is at Peace. And from Psalms 23:4, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Fear is based on the supposition that evil is equal to good. The only thing that can adequately overcome fear is confidence and love. Love alone breaks down the barriers of fear and through faith discovers there is an eternal heart. Emerson tells us that the universal remains to the heart unhurt. We must learn to turn from all of the little petty things that fret us, from the obstructions that seem so insurmountable, from the problems that seem too great to be solved. Realizing there is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. We should open our whole being to a love of everything, of everyone. For love to be real, it must be all-inclusive. Today, my mental house is at peace. I enter into a permanent and conscious relationship with the divine presence. I shall permit only that which is loving, kind, and true to find entrance or exit through my consciousness. Realizing that I cannot ask for that which I refuse to give, I look upon the earth as a dwelling place of spirit. I love all creation and enter into conscious union with people, things, and events. Realizing that the kingdom of heaven is not far off, but is ever at hand. I seek to become a worthy inhabitant of this kingdom, knowing that everyone is subject to the law of love, that everything is gradually being made perfect through law. This is the truth in my life, and this is the truth in yours, and so it is.